Now more than ever, organizations are having to adapt to the current climate. Here to talk to us about Azure's critical response from our Customer Reliability Engineering team is Michael Ryan. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. Well, maybe just take a couple of minutes to tell us what you do and what Customer Reliability Engineering is at Microsoft.
Yeah, sure. So, because it's an internal Microsoft team, I'll try not to do death by three-letter acronyms. But as I'm part of Azure Customer Experience, which is a dedicated branch of engineering that works on issues that can drive and enhance customers' experience of the platform. So we have programs such as probably more publicly known ones like Fast Track, and then we have crisis engineering, communications, and a whole bunch of other things. The specific part I work on is CRE, which is Customer Reliability Engineering. And we manage, to be very simplifying on it, crisis and communications across the platform. So the bits people might be actually much more aware of is there's portal-based communications and we have our dashboard. So if you ever look at status.azure.com and you get a message related to the health of the platform, or if you get one in your portal, or if you've seen media or interaction on social media on at Azure support, that's all run by CRE. And we run 24/7 and 8 hours of the day. There's a live site operations function in Dublin that manages the world for this.
So it's you that is responsible for those status page that we check. Yeah, I've used a bunch of those services that you talk about myself. So fantastic.
Excellent.
Michael, we understand your team has been really busy over the last few weeks. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned the communications part because that's what's more publicly known. But internally, we have a whole engineering branch dedicated to crisis and life site response, which is essentially when there are things in the platform that aren't functioning exactly the way we want, we need a whole bunch of dedicated engineers to jump in and make sure that stuff gets lined up as quickly as possible. And we've dedicated engineering and individual service teams. So if there's something that needs working on or fixing in storage, storage helps. But then there's the crisis intervention engineering that works directly with customers. And that's our normal day-to-day operations. But during COVID, obviously, it was a time of crisis response around the world, and we were very heavily involved from the beginning. But actually, we came very quickly to realize that there was a whole section of society that we needed to categorize and prioritize in the work that we were doing, simply because we needed to fundamentally support the functioning of society in a time where a lot of people were unable to go to work and there was a lot of uncertainty for people about what was going on. And that group basically was known as life and safety. And finally, an internal thing without a three-letter acronym in Microsoft. Who knew? And like, it's very simple at the start where you go, oh, well, obviously, hospitals. We want to help hospitals. And then you think, oh, government, yes, government. And the prescriptive lists from us would be okay to start, but it's not a way to run a program. We can't tell customers what is priority and critical. We need to work with customers. So we ended up doing a program with, there's a group that manage each of the areas. We kind of segment by areas for sales regions in Microsoft, and there's a whole business group that runs each of them. So we partnered with them and we ran 24 hours around the globe, a triage function with them to come up with an initial list of what is critical life and safety workloads for your customers on the cloud. And we got a very good collaborative response. It was a really one Microsoft approach. And it gave us a very big list of just, hey, here's a bunch of things that are important. A first draft of that is always interesting because it is a lot of things that are important, but not everyone's going to fully align on the message. And then we need to know what's critical. So even if we understand, hey, this is a hospital, we want to prioritize the hospital patient system, not necessarily the hospital car park billing system. So we did a continuous triage iteration with all the business groups. And over the space of about 72 hours, we solidified into a list of what was life and safety across the platform. And the reason for this and why we had to be so rigorous on it is everyone knows it. Everyone's special, nobody's special. And this was a time of crisis and pandemic, and we needed to have an extra layer on top of all the rigor that Microsoft brings to Azure for these customers where society was relying on them.
Gosh, yeah, no, it's so interesting to see kind of that project that you worked on, thinking about that new category and how everyone had to act so quickly in every part of their life, and specifically in the data centers. So yeah, just like massive thanks for that work. It is really, really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was. And
definitely.
sorry, go ahead. One thing I was going to say is that just in terms of getting a list of customers is part one. And then you go, okay, what do we do with this information? And there is a bit where you hack and you work your way through, and there's a bit where you actually have to systemize. And getting to systemize is the only way that you scale across something the size of Azure that spans the globe. And so there's a lot of background systems that are fairly invisible to customers. Like if you are an enterprise customer, when you want to do something, you request quota, and quota gets approved, and then you can use whatever you need on the platform. But there is actually a triage process in there to make sure that you get what you need and that everything's working. And life and safety, then, once we'd established this category, needed to be automatically entered into that system, that anything that life and safety customers needed came immediately to the top of the queue. We needed to build automatic alerting in for the crisis engineering group. So if there was any issues in the platform that could impact a life and safety customer, that the dedicated engineering teams from CRE would be alerted straight away. And we needed to integrate it into overall LifeSite, because LifeSite engineering runs 24/7. It's always making sure the cloud is working. But if there was anything in LifeSite engineering that could impact life and safety, we needed that to be alerted and bubbled up. So as well as getting this list down, we had to build out tooling, telemetry, and a whole bunch of other challenges come with that. And it was a real very interesting sort of hack approach, which is a big internal Microsoft culture that we have now.
No, so yeah, given so obviously a lot of change in process, but also given the change in kind of cloud patterns and usage, I guess, has changed. The way that our customers and us use the cloud has potentially changed during this time as well, right? Have you had any technical challenges that have come up around that kind of theme?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. Like there's some stuff related to what goes on in life and safety, things that um, we work on but we don't publicly talk about. But there's lots of things that are fairly publicly known as well. I think there was articles, the NHS in the UK took like a huge number of teams licensed and transitioned an enormous number of staff to working remotely. And all of that is stuff that's actually working within the cloud. So internally for us, there were challenges for us in terms of just building tooling that could allow us to actually leverage the data we're talking about. And then there were challenges for us just in terms of making sure that we were able to stay on top of everything that customers needed. But for us, the big key takeaway was life and safety. And probably the best way to describe it was on a Friday evening, we knew that we needed a system for life and safety, and we were working on a data feed for it. And by Monday morning, with a group of people from multiple verticals, we had swarmed and we had made the first version of what life and safety was and how you could access and basically leverage the data that was within it.
Love that. So it's super fast innovation.
Probably an interesting, like in terms of, again, size and scale of what Microsoft does, we have to be very careful with what we do with data, how we access it. We have very, very strict regulations, which serve a very good purpose of making sure that everything is the way customers would want it. But when you're trying to do a program then that spans multiple verticals and runs around through everything from sales, engineering, and other organizations, we had to then work on how do we combine data to get what we need. And it was an interesting thing of this, I think there's a term used quite often called dog fooding, but I prefer eating your own cooking. It sounds more palatable. A lot of our products are things that we internally use. So we have an offering in Azure called Azure Data Explorer, but that was an internal system called Custo, which we were leveraging long beforehand. And we get the slightly bumpier version when we're building and hacking and working on it. But we tested at such massive scale internally that eventually realized this is a product offering the customers want. And when we were doing this, we used everything from detailed deep dive Custo queries built out to pull the data, all down to very simple things like Power BI dashboards. So at a glance, people can go, this is what I need to know. And actually, the data in this, one of the important functions on this is not just what we're doing, but it's visibility in the organization. So the priority of life and safety permeated everything we were doing. And our critical engineering leaders reporting up to Jason Zander, all working on this, but we were aligning a good bit of it on how life and safety were experiencing the COVID pandemic. And the automation reports that we built were feeding directly into that.
Really, really great stuff. So you and your team are living in a very fast-paced, problem-solving environment. How do you keep everyone fresh? I think I get a little bit exhausted after a while, and you're like, oh, my brain is the first thing to go. How do you keep everyone innovating?
So it's an interesting thing. First of all, when there's a great bunch of people around you, it's very flattering, the output where people go, hey, this is great work. But it is a bunch of people who are dedicated to what we do. The best way I'll explain it is Microsoft has become a very different company since Satya took over about 6.5 years ago, because we pivoted to the cloud. And when you're working in the cloud, you fundamentally understand that you have an excellent offering that customers may want, but so do your competitors. And you need to get much more aligned with growth mindset, customer obsession, embracing failure, and all of the things that as a culture we need to do. And certainly because the engineering arm in Dublin is one that we've built out fresh over the last 5 or 6 years, one of the things is we've had a really key focus on mindset and the people that we employ. And it's led into this really good culture of what we can get done on behalf of the customer. And it's also, we've had a global program for a long time, but it's had a renewed focus of a hackathon. And a hackathon sounds very simple of, hey, well, let's, try fix something. But a hackathon actually takes a bunch of people out of their comfort zone and out of the daily busyness that we're all in and says, right, how do you solve this random problem that we've never had a chance to look at? And we get people from across groups, finance, sales, marketing, engineering, in rooms going, right, what's this thing? How do we do it? And the hackathon's been really successful in building a culture, and that really permeates everything you see in Microsoft around the globe, but particularly in Dublin. And very proudly, Dublin actually won the hackathon a couple of years ago as well. So the culture is very much baked in, and we're quite proud of it.
That's amazing. So good. And I guess I know we've spoken before and we've had a good chat and kind of caught up. But if you were to give advice to our engineering audience who are watching us now, what advice would you give them around their deployments in the cloud, etc., that could support you guys?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I've done a few customer calls and other things related to this, obviously, and there is some terminology we try not to overuse. This was unprecedented. It's a pandemic that has spanned the globe, and it has had some very serious consequences, and society has shown its best side. But you only get to say something's unprecedented once. And Azure Engineering ran dedicated engineering triage sessions nonstop 7 days a week for 30, 40 plus days in a row to make sure we were ahead of this, on top of it, and doing what we needed. But we're at a stage where everybody is mostly getting to stable. A lot of countries are opening up again, and that's good. But that's not where we start. And from a Microsoft perspective, the engineering works are continuing to make sure that essentially, if something like this were to reoccur, and we certainly hope it doesn't, honestly, it would be something that it just is another day-to-day occurrence that we can cater on the platform. So we're resetting what is our unexpected. And that's probably the takeaway I'd have for customers too, is what's unexpected, what's unprecedented, what's the thing that would undo your business. Everyone needs to take a moment to refocus on that. And particularly if you're leveraging the cloud, and if you're relatively new to it, a lot of people move stuff from on-site directly into the cloud, and they don't fully take advantage of all the things such as resilience and other methods that are available in the cloud, some of which are free, some of which are quite low cost, but they can fundamentally make your business more and more robust. And that's a takeaway I'd have for everyone, is re-examine what underpins your daily business activities, and what are your SLOs, what do you actually need from your infrastructure?
That's great. And then we that kind of, I guess, sort of links a little bit with architecture. So for anyone watching in the audience, if you are looking to find out a little bit more about Azure architecture, go to docs.microsoft.com or just search for Azure architecture, and you should land in a space where you can find lots of great blueprints and awesome advice.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I kind of, a joke phrase I use, but it has a serious meaning when talking to some customers, is if you architect correctly, hopefully you'll never speak to me again. And it's a good takeaway for customers if they never need interaction from crisis response communications because they are architected in a resilient manner, then they have everything they need, and the platform and the cloud is a valued, trusted partner, and they don't need to think about anything else.
It's like an insurance policy, right? You pay for it, but you hope you never use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they call it a contract of trust, but we have a resilience that we need to provide from physical engineering, data centers, other things. But if customers design and architect in such a way that they extend that resilience, then we have a very happy partnership. And that's what we're hoping for.
So lastly, just a huge thank you to you and your team for all the hard work and for sharing your story with us here on Build Digital.
Yeah, no problem at all. Really enjoying the virtual event, and thanks very much for everything that you're doing.
All right, thanks very much.
All right,
Cheers,
take care.
Michael.